Welcome to Gender Chronicles. Dive into the fascinating world of gender dynamics as we unravel the threads of tradition, change, and identity. Together, we'll explore the intricate relationships between the sexes, empowering you to navigate them with clarity, confidence, and insight. Today, our topic is the million missing men problem. The story will take us through the lived experience of the twists and turns of the complex relationship between the sexes. Let us begin. The million missing men in the Midwest. In the heart of the American Midwest, nestled among rolling plains and industrious towns, lay the city of Riverton. Known for its robust manufacturing sector and tight-knit community, Riverton had long been a beacon of blue-collar prosperity. At the center of this industrious hub was Henry Thompson, a seasoned business owner who had dedicated his life to providing top-notch plumbing, welding, and electrical services to the surrounding communities. For over 3 decades, Henry's company, Thompson Trades, had been the go-to provider for essential services in Riverton and its neighboring towns. His team of skilled tradesmen was the backbone of the local infrastructure, ensuring that homes were warm in the winter, pipes flowed smoothly, and the lights stayed on. However, in recent years, Henry had found himself grappling with an unprecedented challenge, a severe shortage of skilled tradesmen. The problem was not unique to Riverton. Across the United States, the construction industry faced a daunting shortfall, needing to attract about 500,000 new workers in 2024 to balance supply and demand. Similarly, the nation was expected to be short 550,000 plumbers by 2027. This scarcity was exacerbated by an aging workforce, with many seasoned professionals retiring and too few young people entering the skilled trades. Henry's predicament was dire. Despite offering competitive wages, plumbers in the region earned an average of $93,080 annually, and benefits, he struggled to fill vacancies. The once steady stream of apprentices had dwindled to a trickle, and the few applicants he did receive often lacked the necessary experience or commitment. The impact on the communities Henry served was palpable. Homeowners faced longer wait times for essential repairs, leading to frustration and, in some cases, hazardous living conditions. Local businesses, reliant on timely maintenance, experienced disruptions that affected their operations and bottom lines. The shortage of skilled tradesmen had a cascading effect, straining the very fabric of Riverton's daily life. Among the most vocal were the women of Riverton. Accustomed to the reliability of Thompson Trades, they now found themselves waiting weeks for appointments. The frustration was evident in community meetings and local forums, where discussions about the man drought in the trades became increasingly heated. The term handyman famine was coined, capturing the collective exasperation of those left in limbo by the scarcity of skilled labor. Politicians, sensing the growing discontent, scrambled to address the issue. State legislatures enacted policies related to career and technical education, CTE, aiming to expand work-based learning opportunities and funding for job training programs. Despite these efforts, the deep-seated stigma associated with vocational careers persisted. A survey of 1,000 US-based 18 to 20-year-olds found that 74% perceived a stigma associated with choosing vocational school over a traditional 4-year university. The roots of the problem, Henry mused, were tangled in the broader societal shifts of recent decades. The rise of feminist ideology had championed women's independence, encouraging them to pursue higher education and professional careers. While this progress was commendable, it inadvertently contributed to the devaluation of traditional male-dominated trades. The narrative that women didn't need no man had, in some circles, morphed into a broader dismissal of the roles that men traditionally occupied. Moreover, societal institutions had evolved in ways that often marginalized men. Educational systems emphasized college degrees over vocational training, leading to a decline in shop classes and apprenticeship programs. Family courts, in their pursuit of protecting women's interests, sometimes overlooked the challenges faced by men. Media portrayals frequently depicted men as disposable or incompetent, further eroding the perceived value of traditional masculine roles. Henry coined the term gynocentric drift to describe this societal shift, a gradual reorientation of social structures and institutions that prioritized women's desires and experiences, often at the expense of men's roles and contributions. This drift, he believed, had led to the current crisis in the trades. In his office, Surrounded by framed photographs of completed projects and team outings, Henry pondered the future. He knew that reversing the trade drain required more than just policy changes. It demanded a cultural reawakening. Society needed to recognize the intrinsic value of skilled labor and the men who performed it. The narrative had to shift from viewing trades as a fallback option to celebrating them as vital and honorable professions. To that end, Henry began collaborating with local schools to reintroduce vocational training programs. He offered internships and scholarships, aiming to ignite a passion for the trades in the younger generation. He also organized community workshops, where seasoned tradesmen shared their skills and stories, fostering appreciation and respect for their crafts. The journey was arduous, but Henry remained steadfast. He envisioned a future where the pendulum of societal values would find equilibrium, acknowledging the importance of both professional careers and skilled trades. In this balanced world, young men and women would feel empowered to pursue paths aligned with their talents and interests, free from societal stigmas or pressures. As the sun set over Riverton, casting a golden hue over the city, Henry felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges were immense, but so was the potential for change. With determination and a commitment to reshaping perceptions, he believed that Thompson Trades and the broader community would not only survive, but thrive in the years to come. The Townhall. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as the Riverton Community Hall filled with agitated voices. Folding chairs scraped against the scuffed tile floor as women shuffled in, clutching notebooks and smartphones. At the front of the room stood Henry, flanked by his manager, Ben, who had the look of a man on the verge of losing his patience. The air crackled with tension. The Riverton Council of Progressive Women had called the town hall to present their concerns and demands. "How much longer are we supposed to wait, Henry?" demanded Lisa Carmichael, a PTA president and Girlboss with a voice sharp enough to cut steel. "It's been 3 weeks since my kitchen flooded. 3 weeks. Your company promised someone would be there last Monday, and nobody showed up." "You're not the only one," added another woman, arms crossed tight against her chest. "My mother's furnace is still out, and it's freezing. Do you understand what it's like to live in an icebox with an elderly parent?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Henry took a step forward, hands raised in an attempt to settle the crowd. "Ladies, I hear you." "No, Henry," Lisa snapped, cutting him off. "You don't hear us. We're sick of excuses. Your team used to be reliable. Now, you're leaving families hanging. What's changed? Where's your accountability?" The accusation hung in the air like the smoke from a blown-out candle. It was then that Ben stepped forward, his face red and jaw set. "Accountability?" His voice thundered across the room, silencing the murmurs. "You want to talk about accountability? Fine, let's talk about it." The women bristled. "You sit here," Ben continued, pacing in front of them, "accusing us of incompetency, of not being committed to this community. But have any of you stopped for even one damn minute to think about how we got here? About what's really going on in this town, in this country?" The room froze. "Let's not kid ourselves," he said, leaning over the table. "For years you've pushed the idea that men are obsolete, that you don't need us, that men are disposable. Well, guess what? Young men heard you. Boys growing up in this town heard you. And now? They don't see any point in doing the hard, dirty work anymore. They've checked out." A murmur of protest began to rise, but Ben cut it off. "Oh no, don't you dare try to deny it. Don't tell me this isn't what you wanted. For decades you've been telling girls they can do anything men can do, and better. You've told boys they're privileged, toxic, and patriarchal." He jabbed a finger in the air. "You've turned schools into factories for female empowerment and male shame. You pushed shop classes out of the curriculum and replaced them with gender studies." Lisa's face flushed. "That's not fair." "Fair?" Ben barked. "You want fair? Then let's make this fair. If you think men aren't doing their jobs, step up. Enroll in trade school. Get your daughters into welding programs. You want equality? Then prove it. Fix your own pipes. Rewire your own homes. Crawl into the mud and the snow and the sewage." "That's ridiculous," snapped a woman in the back. "You're just trying to shift blame instead of taking responsibility." "Responsibility?" Ben shot back. "We're here, aren't we? Busting our asses day and night to keep this town running with the handful of guys we've got left. Meanwhile, the rest of you expect skilled labor to fall out of the sky after you've spent decades driving men away from trades, from families, and from society itself.
"You don't get it," shouted Lisa. "We've worked just as hard to build careers and support our families." "And that's great," Ben fired back. "But while you were breaking glass ceilings, you forgot who was holding up the foundations. You didn't think about what would happen when there weren't enough men left willing to do the jobs nobody else wants."
The room exploded into shouts.
"You think this is our fault? You're just bitter because the world's changed. And what's wrong with women wanting better lives?"
Ben's voice boomed over the noise.
"Nothing's wrong with wanting better lives, but actions have consequences. You wanted a world where you didn't need men, and now you're angry that men aren't there when you need them. Well, welcome to the world you built."
The shouting continued for another half hour. Accusations flew, insults were traded. Henry stood back, arms folded, letting Ben say what he knew needed to be said. Eventually, the crowd began to thin. Some women left in a huff, muttering under their breath. Others lingered, shaken but thoughtful. A few approached Henry quietly to ask if there were any training programs for their sons or their daughters. When the room finally emptied, Henry clapped Ben on the shoulder.
"You know you just made us a few enemies tonight," Ben snorted.
"Yeah, well maybe it's about time someone told the truth." Henry nodded, glancing toward the empty chairs. Let's hope they were listening.
A week after the Townhall debacle, Lisa Carmichael went to Riverton Auto Repair. Lisa herself was a girl power type who strutted through Riverton like she owned it, or at least like she thought she did. Her sharp heels clicked on the pavement with the precision of a metronome, each step a declaration of war against the patriarchy. She was the quintessential girl boss, clad in a tailored blazer so aggressively cinched at the waist it seemed to dare the world to question her authority. Her face bore the carefully curated battle scars of someone who had spent too much time perfecting her LinkedIn profile photo. Sharp eyebrows drawn high into perpetual disapproval, lips lacquered in a crimson shade ominously named Dominate, or Power Play. There was a kind of armor in her makeup, each contour line a trench carved to fend off imagined attacks from the lesser beings, men, who dared to exist in her orbit. Her handbag, a designer monstrosity big enough to double as a carry-on, was slung over one arm like a scepter. Inside, it undoubtedly held a tablet loaded with spreadsheets, a copy of some self-help manifesto titled Lean In Harder, and the withered souls of every intern she had ever made cry. She clutched it with the authority of someone who had practiced power poses in the mirror and quoted Sheryl Sandberg in board meetings just to watch the men squirm. Lisa had always prided herself on being independent. She never needed a man, and she made damn sure they knew it. She could recite her salary down to the last decimal point, always just a little louder than necessary, particularly in rooms where men gathered. Her favorite parlor trick was sliding her Cadillac key fob onto the table during meetings, flashing the brand logo as if it were the modern-day equivalent of a royal seal. But if Riverton's residents whispered about her, and they often did, it wasn't admiration they expressed. They called her Queen Congenital, a nickname birthed from equal parts mockery and pity. It wasn't just her biting tone or her pathological need to correct everyone within a 10-foot radius. It was the absence of warmth in her eyes, the brittleness in her smile, and the faint, gnawing sense that Lisa Carmichael wasn't half as satisfied with her life as she pretended to be. It hadn't always been this way, of course. Once upon a time, Lisa was married to a man who had endured her theatrics longer than anyone had thought possible. But one early morning, he simply left. No dramatic goodbye, no heated argument, just a note that read, "Can't do this anymore." He hadn't even bothered with a divorce. The paperwork would have been too exhausting, too much like one of the endless conversations where she talked and he nodded. She woke up one day, checked the closet, and found his side empty, except for the tie he wore at their wedding, crumpled in the corner like the last shred of a dead dream. Lisa never spoke of it, except to frame herself as the resilient phoenix rising from the ashes of a toxic man. But the cracks in her armor had started to show. She barked orders with more ferocity than before, doubling down on her authority as if volume could fill the void he'd left. Men in town gave her a wide berth, not out of fear, but out of exhaustion. They dodged her like stray cattle dodging a hailstorm, knowing full well that any interaction could lead to a lecture about female empowerment and male mediocrity. Younger men, those who hadn't yet learned to spot trouble, might smile politely at first, but one conversation about wage gaps and toxic masculinity usually sent them scrambling for the exits. And so Lisa remained, a monument to her own ambition,
standing tall and hollow. She prowled through Riverton's stores, meetings, and offices with the cold precision of a spreadsheet, her confidence a polished shell that no one dared tap too hard, lest it shatter. But even the proudest ships can sink. And lately, Lisa's keel had been taking on water. Her broken-down Cadillac was just the latest insult in what felt like an avalanche of indignities. She hated waiting, hated needing. Yet here she was, stuck like everyone else, drowning in a world where the men she had dismissed as unnecessary were suddenly indispensable. And worst of all, somewhere, in the back of her mind, a voice she'd silenced long ago whispered the truth. She did need them. She needed all of them, the plumbers, the mechanics, the welders, and the electricians she'd spent years deriding. She needed their calloused hands and weathered skills. But saying that out loud would be too much. Instead, she reapplied her lipstick, straightened her blazer, and marched toward the service counter. If Lisa was going to lose this battle, she'd lose it loudly. The scent of motor oil and burnt rubber was thick in the air. Her platinum blonde hair, chemically perfected and flat-ironed into submission, reflected the unforgiving fluorescence of the auto repair shop like a warning signal. Her heels clicked against the concrete floor as she approached the front desk, where Charlie Simmons, the shop manager, leaned over a clipboard. He looked up and wiped grease off his hands with a rag, his expression shifting when he recognized her.
"Lisa," he said flatly, "what can I do for you?" She slapped her car keys down on the counter. "My Cadillac's transmission is acting up. I need it looked at, today."
Charlie didn't even flinch. He set the rag down and leaned his elbows on the counter, meeting her gaze with the unflinching calm of a man who had dealt with more angry customers than he could count. "I'm gonna stop you right there. We're booked solid. The soonest I can get you in is 4 weeks out."
4 weeks?
Lisa's voice rose, heads turning in the waiting area.
You can't be serious. My car barely made it here. How am I supposed to get to work without it?
Charlie raised an eyebrow. "Ever heard of carpooling or Uber?"
Uber?
She spat the word like it was poison. "You think I can afford Uber for 4 weeks? That's hundreds of dollars."
"Well," Charlie shrugged, "looks like you're gonna have to get creative."
Lisa's jaw dropped. "You can't just brush me off like this. I'm a paying customer. I need my car fixed and I need it now."
"And I need more guys to do the work," Charlie shot back. "But guess what? I don't have them. Half my team's already putting in 12-hour shifts just to keep up with what we've got. So unless you plan to roll up your sleeves and start turning wrenches, you're gonna have to wait."
Lisa clenched her fists, her voice trembling with frustration. "This is insane. Why is this happening?" Charlie leaned back and crossed his arms. "You really want to know?"
"Yes."
"Fine." He pointed at her. "You heard what Ben said last week at the town hall. Be careful what you wish for. You might get it."
"Well, Lisa, looks like you got it." Her face went pale, the words cutting deeper than she'd expected.
"You all spent years telling men we weren't needed," Charlie continued, his voice growing sharper. "That we were toxic, oppressive, and in the way. You pushed boys out of shop classes and into gender studies. Told them to go to college and find themselves instead of learning how to fix things. Now, we've got an entire generation that doesn't know the difference between a socket wrench and a screwdriver. And here we are." Lisa opened her mouth, but Charlie wasn't done. "Go ahead. Keep pretending this is just about my shop or Henry's crew. It's everywhere, Lisa. Plumbing, welding, HVAC, electricians, you name it. Guys didn't stop working because they're lazy. They stopped working because you spent 30 years telling them their work didn't matter. You wanted equality? Congratulations. You got it. Hope you're enjoying it." Lisa slammed her hands down on the counter. "That's not fair, Charlie. Women didn't create this mess alone. Men let it happen too. You let schools shut down trade programs. You let boys get pushed out. You just sat there and watched." "Oh, so now it's our fault for not fighting back hard enough?" Charlie's voice dripped with sarcasm. "We tried. You just didn't listen. You were too busy calling us dinosaurs and celebrating how strong and independent you were. Well, guess what? Independence costs. And right now, it's costing you a working transmission."
Lisa's face burned. "You act like we had a choice. We were just trying to survive in a world where men held all the cards." Charlie barked a laugh. "Held all the cards? Lady, men built the table you're sitting at? And now that the table's broken, you're mad there's no one left to fix it? Unbelievable." Lisa pointed a trembling finger at him. "You're deflecting. I came here for service, not a lecture. And I came here to manage a shop, not babysit a broken society. Charly shot back.
The room fell silent, save for the distant hum of power tools. Lisa's shoulders slumped as the weight of his words settled in. "Look," Charly finally said, his voice softening just slightly. "I get it, this sucks. But blaming me or Henry or any of the guys still trying to hold this town together isn't going to fix your car or this problem. We're doing the best we can with what we've got. You want faster service? Fine. Go home, call every young man you know, and tell them to get off their phones, skip the student loans, and learn how to work with their hands. Until then, you're waiting 4 weeks."
Lisa opened her mouth to respond but found no words. She grabbed her keys, turned sharply on her heel, and marched out the door.
Charly watched her go, shaking his head before turning back to the clipboard.
"Be careful what you wish for," he muttered under his breath.
"You might just get it." Thank you for tuning in. If you found this story thought-provoking or inspiring, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to stay connected. Got a topic on your mind? Share your ideas with us. We're always eager to explore what matters to you.